was it like when there was no TV? Well, we had radio. My mother loved sound, she loved the opera, and she always had a radio in the house. Not a small table radio most people had. She would buy a console that sat on the floor, had a big speaker. My mother, my brother, and I would sit around the radio and we'd use our imaginations, something nobody does anymore today. And we listened to the great names in those days, especially on Sunday. Eddie Cantor, who would mention his wife, Ida, sweet as apple cider. Jimmy Durante, the nose. Bing Crosby, when the blue of the night meets the gold of the day. Bob Hope's commercial. You'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent. There was Archie's Tavern. The phone would ring, Archie would pick it up and he'd say, Archie's Tavern, where the elite meet to eat. Archie, the manager, talking. I could go on. And of course there were the mystery stories where you really use your imagination. And the one we watched most was The Shadow. And it would open with The Shadow knows the weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The shadow knows. And the voice of the shadow in those days was none other than Orson Welles, who started out in radio. Oh, and there was my buddy Henry Morgan. Not the Henry Morgan of the movies. This was another Henry Morgan who dealt in topical humor, which was something pretty rare in those days. His humor would come from reading the newspaper, and it usually revolved around the absurdity of the lives we all live, to a limited degree anyway. And Henry Morgan later on had a television show, early days of TV, and one day his guest was the eccentric Spanish painter Salvador Dali. And the program was billed as Dali going to paint a new picture, new painting right there on live TV. And TV in the early days was all live. So Dali arrives with his mustache up to here, you know, a cloak, carrying a cane, and he says to Henry, get me an egg. And he says, get me a board. And Dali takes the egg and throws it against the board, and the egg drips down. Dali takes his cane and goes through kind of movements, pushing his cane into the egg, and voila, that was Dali's painting on live TV. I guess that was a joke at the time, but it's probably worth $1 million now. Why now?